Okay, hello, awesome humans. Welcome to Wellbeing Wednesday. Woohoo! We're now live on Zoom and Facebook and YouTube if you're watching there, and in the future if you're watching there. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this awesome Wednesday. So excited you're here. As always, we're going to take just a moment to let folks flood in from everywhere. Welcome if it's your first time. Welcome if it's your 26th time, which I think is the number. What is that? Like, where are we? What's happening with time? So excited you're all here. I'm Natalie, by the way. Someone emailed me last week to say it was my first time. I wasn't sure what your name was. Hi, everyone. Hello, awesome humans. I'm Natalie. Debbie is here too. We'll be seeing her shortly. So psyched you're here. I'm very, very spiffed up for you all today. I just recorded a keynote at my house, but with a video team. I haven't had a video team. I've been doing it all on Zoom for Texas Conference for Women that's coming up in a few months. So I'm very official keynote this morning. So welcome everyone. So grateful you are here. As always, we begin with a moment of gratitude. So please take a moment right now, whether you're on Zoom, Facebook, or on YouTube in the future. Think of something you are grateful for, and please share it in chat on Zoom or in comments on Facebook. And please remember to be specific. The more specific you are with your gratitude, the more benefit you feel. This is my favorite time of the webinar when I ask you to do this, and then we all take a gratitude bath in the comments. And I love seeing all your gratitudes come in every week. I always say this, but I only have time to glance at them as I'm talking. But then Debbie does an act of kindness always and copies the chat for me. So after the webinar, I have my tea and I read your gratitude. So thank you for sharing them and welcome. I'm really excited about our topic today. I'm excited every week, but I'm really excited about our topic today, which is how to use fresh starts to help you get or stay motivated. I think we're all struggling with motivation given all the things. So I'm really excited to talk about the science of fresh starts and how it can help you stay or get motivated. As always, I have some practices for you, for yourself, and to do with your team. So I'm really excited to dive in. Art moment, must remember. So as always, I have a new piece of art that I've created to share with you. Here it is. This is actually a painting I just did last week. It's bigger, it doesn't look that big, but it's bigger than my usual painting, and I love it. It's so wet, it's oil, so I definitely got some oil on my hands putting it there, but I wanted to share it with you. So as always, I love sharing the art with you. And I have more, another fun art piece that I know I shared on Instagram, but I'm playing with putting my art on things. So this mug is actually, this is one of my paintings on this mug, and I shared it on Instagram yesterday, and so many people said, oh my God, can you set it up so we can buy them? So I'm feeling it, you guys. I'm gonna, for the holidays, okay, let me say it here. For the holidays, I'm gonna make it happen. We'll set up a store so you can get some joy, so I get to share some of the joy. So that's the art moment of the day. Yes, I know, I love this mug too. And I love this is a little watercolor. So the only thing I want to say before quick announcements from Debbie is there are still a few spots left in our Leading Through Adversity program. It is the last leadership program I am leading this year in 2020. There will not be another one. It's a really special program that we worked really hard to create. It's a 3-month program. It starts at the end of September, so you have time to sign up. It's a small group, 25 people or under, so you have an opportunity to learn together with me in a pretty intimate environment, and it's focused on emotional health and leadership skills for leaders to help you struggle less, to help you be at your best, to help you lead your team through this challenging time. Debbie just put a link in chat in Zoom. Click there if you're interested and click to apply. The one thing I want to say is, I say this every week, but it's really important when we're talking about this program. It doesn't matter if you manage people. It doesn't matter what your title is. You are a leader if you positively impact other people. And I actually want to do a shout out without embarrassing you and calling that person out by name. But someone applied to the program after last week's webinar, and in her application, she wrote that she was really hesitant to apply because she doesn't manage people. And she was like, oh, am I a leader? Am I senior enough? And she said, Natalie, your encouragement helped me. So I love that. And we have so many great leaders who are part of the program who have been coming to these webinars. Again, we have a couple spots left. So if you are interested, please click on the link that Debbie shared, and all the info is there, the price is there, all the details are there. And if you're interested, click apply. It's a short application. So with that, I know Debbie has a couple of quick announcements, and then we'll dive in talking about fresh starts and the science of fresh starts to help us get motivated. Debbie, over to you.
Natalie, it's been so fun talking to leaders and hearing from them about how fueling these weekly webinars are for them. And I'm so excited about the program and to get to go on this journey with some leaders. And for the newcomers today, we want to say a big warm welcome. We have hundreds of new people sign up for this webinar out of all of our 26 weeks doing it. And we're so glad you're here. And please let us know. Say hi if you're new and tell us where you're from. And if you're from a company, what company you're from, we'd love to know. And you'll get a recording of today's session by email afterward if you signed up through the Zoom, which is just one of the benefits of signing up for registering for the webinar. And after Natalie talks to us today about fresh starts, which I think that we're all feeling in need of right now, after she talks to us about that, I'm going to be relaying your questions to her. And I want you to feel free to ask questions at any point during the webinar. You can ask them in the chat. You can send them directly to me in chat. My name's Debbie Karch. And or you can put them in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. I'll be monitoring those so you won't be distracting to Natalie, and I'd love to connect with you at any time. So with that, Natalie, I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Debbie. And when Debbie talks, I get to glance at some of your gratitudes for my fuel. And thank you. So many of them are so open and vulnerable today. Thank you for sharing. And I just glanced at one who is a person who's grateful for firefighters for keeping your home safe. So to everyone in California, thinking of you. My best friend lives out there. So yeah, hopefully you're all staying safe. And if you're in Colorado, hopefully you're okay with the snow. What? Snow in September? New to me. So let's dive in. And I have to tell you how I came to this topic. So I am one of those annoying people who never has trouble being motivated. I'm super annoying that way. I'm just always like, I'm very disciplined. I'm motivated. Like, yeah, I annoy my 16-year-old daughter who you met last week if you were here. But I've had a lot of trouble getting motivated for some of the things I wanted to do. And I went kind of down a little research rabbit hole, which I love to do. I'm a total geek that way, to try to understand what might be going on and how I can help myself. And that's where this topic came from. And so, you know, we're 6 months into this pandemic, okay? And it's a long time. And I know some days it feels like it's been here forever. Some days it feels like it's just starting. I don't know. It's a really long time. And one of the challenges, I think, in addition to all the challenges, is that everything kind of feels same, right? Like, are you feeling this? It's very sameness. Like, so my daughter, you know, September is usually back to school, right? Like, it's a fresh start. It's kind of exciting, you know, a lot of change, but different. And this year, my daughter is going to be a junior in high school, but they're doing it online. And she said something the other day. She said, yeah, I don't even feel like school is starting because I don't think it ended. Like, I'm still in April, you know? And so I think there's just a lot of sameness, and it can be really challenging for our brain to get motivated for something new when everything feels really stagnant. Debbie said to me when I was chatting with her about this topic, she said she's never heard the word apathy as often as she's heard it in the last couple of weeks. And so I think we're all kind of in this, in the drudge of it, right? In the, oh my God, like it's all the same. When is this going to change? And so it's natural to lose your motivation. I'd say from all, you know, we do, I mentioned many of you have been to them. We've been doing, I think we're north of 100 now sessions for leaders and teams. And it's the question around motivation is coming up more and more. So I know we're all struggling with it. And so I want to talk about how we can help ourselves get motivated using the science of fresh starts, and I'm going to explain that, and using 3 essential emotional health skills, which obviously I'm also going to go through. So a fresh start is, we all know what they are. Like, you know how we all make resolutions around New Year's, right? Even if you don't make like an official New Year's resolution, I know most of us, like, we think of something we want to achieve next year, or we think of like, okay, here's a habit I want to kick, or here's a habit I want to have. So New Year's, it's a natural fresh start. And there are many others, like September, going back to school is a fresh start, or our birthdays are a fresh start. And they're fresh starts because they are what's called temporal landmarks. So it's in time, in a year, in our lifetime, they're marked with something special. Your birthday, Monday, New Year's, going back to school. And, you know, research shows, and they've done really cool like analysis of Google searches, that many people start new things or are more motivated to improve themselves around fresh starts, right? Because they can tell from what people are searching for. And the reason that temporal landmarks help us get motivated is they signify for our brain the start of a new time in our lives. And it helps us because it's contrast, right? So knowing that, okay, in a week, New Year starts, it separates kind of myself now, the old me, with the new me. And our brain really likes that. So it kind of lets go of what is or what has been, and it focuses on, okay, like, here's what's important to me. And so I think it's really powerful as a way for us to tap into motivation, to use the science of how temporal landmarks help our brain kind of focus on something and re-energize around it. And the most important thing when you look at the research in why these fresh starts and these temporal landmarks are so helpful, the most important thing is to become aware of the contrast between how you are now and whatever it is that you want to improve, and how you will be when you actually get that new habit, or, you know, kick ass on that new work project, or achieve that goal. One study, for example, showed that people who wanted to quit smoking, those people who reflected on, they wrote in their journal about the positive effects of, like, on their lives once they quit smoking. And they actually were honest, and they reflected on how smoking is negatively affecting them now. They were more successful in quitting smoking than people who just reflected on how much better life will be when they stop smoking. So our brain needs the contrast. It needs us to talk to it about, okay, like, here's how things are now, and here's what are some of the negative impacts of these things, and here's how things will improve when I create this new habit, or when I kick ass on that project, or when I focus on the skill or something else, right? And so when you're thinking about that, it's really, when you're thinking about creating a goal or getting motivated around something, it's really important to become aware and reflect on that contrast. And again, I mentioned this, our brains naturally create separations between, like, our past self, our present self, and our future self. And creating that contrast helps your brain get energized. Okay, like, these are things that I'm not happy about now. I'm going to energize around this new goal because things are going to improve. That's the future self. So for example, we can use this in our advantage. Like, I was writing myself down. I would show you my notes for these webinars. Like, I was writing down some examples of, you know, like, I said this is actually something I said. I've hardly done yoga in August. I usually do yoga about 2-3 times a week. It's one of my kind of core self-care practices. And I wrote down verbatim what I said, like, yeah, I was really slacking on yoga in August. So how can I use this research that I shared with you to help me get remotivated around yoga? So I wrote down, okay, my old self in August slacked on yoga. Okay, my new self starting September 9th, which is today, I think, is September 9th? I gotta check my dates. Yes, September 9th. I was saying all of yesterday that it was Wednesday. My family waited till the evening to tell me I was wrong, the entire day. So September 9th. So my old self in August slacked on yoga. My new self, starting September 9th, is remotivating around yoga, and I'm committing to doing yoga 2 times a week. And again, saying this helps my brain, again, make that separation between old Natalie in August and new Natalie in September. And so when you go ahead and use this practice, and I'm going to give you the steps, when you want to remotivate around a goal, whether it's personal goal or a professional goal, I want you to actually phrase it that way. So my old self really slacked with exercise, or my old self really slacked. I wasn't as great about communicating with my team, or my old self didn't do a really good job sharing with my team our latest progress. But starting today, my new self is going to remotivate around it, or starting in a week. And so help your brain become really aware of the contrast between the old self and now fresh start, temporal landmark, what is important to you going forward. And you know, one of the, somebody wrote into us, a woman named Angela, and I'm not going to remember your last name, but if you are here, you'll know it's you. I love, by the way, I need to say this every time, I love getting your emails with what is resonating. I know Debbie and I love reading them. What is resonating? How are you using practices we're sharing? Team@Happier is the best way to reach us. So Angela emailed after the webinar last week to express her gratitude for how these webinars are like, she didn't use these words, but they're her fresh start every week. Like if she's struggling or in a negative headspace, she watches the webinar and then she's refreshed and goes forward. And so I love knowing that. That means a lot to me. But again, I love that Angela emailed about that, because your fresh start could also be midday. It doesn't have to be for the month or for the week. Like I do this often actually, and I use a phrase that I'm going to share with you to help me. Like if I've been having a really rough morning, you know, those mornings where like nothing is going right, you can't get motivated or focused, I'll say to myself, okay, begin again, and actually restart my day. And so that's what Angela was talking about with this webinar. So you can also use this science of fresh start. If you're having a day where you're having trouble focusing or getting motivated, take a pause and remember you need to draw the contrast for your brain, the before and after, and actually verbalize this. You know, I've been talking a lot in my emails to you guys on social media about learning to talk back to our brain. So talk back to your brain instead of like, oh my God, I'm so unmotivated, blah, blah, blah. Say, I'm going to begin again. The old me in the earlier part of the day was unmotivated and unfocused. Okay, I'm going to begin again. Starting at 12:20, I'm going to remotivate around this project. I'm going to remotivate around this goal. And again, remember that your brain naturally is really attracted to fresh starts, to these temporal landmarks. And the cool thing is we can create them, right? So we don't have to wait for the Monday. We don't have to wait for the New Year's. You can decide for yourself that next Wednesday is going to be a really special Wednesday. Next Wednesday, September 16th, is your fresh start. And you're going to prepare, you're going to outline things you want to get motivated about, and that's what you're going to do. And so the cool thing about this research is it shows our brain is really amenable. So you can create your own temporal landmark just by picking a day in the sand. And so that's the first kind of part of this practice. So I want you to be thinking about, as I'm talking, around what is it that you want to get motivated around? Is it a personal goal? Is it at work? Is it with your family? Is it with your team, right? So I'm going to give you steps at the end, but I want you to be thinking about right now, what are some things you want to get remotivated around using this idea of a fresh start? Because I'm going to give you the steps. But so that's one aspect, is creating your own temporal landmark, picking a day on the calendar. Mondays really do work. There's a lot of research that our brain is so used to Mondays being a fresh start. So connecting your fresh start to a Monday can be helpful, a birthday if it's coming up soon. But again, you can just make it up, right? You can say next Thursday. You can make it any day you want. So start thinking about the goal that you want to get motivated around, or how to do it with your team, because I'm going to give you the steps. But so that's the first piece of the puzzle, is using the science of that our brain loves fresh starts. It helps us to get motivated. And remember what I talked about, we need to make it really clear to our brain the contrast of how things have been and how they will be better, how they'll improve once we are focused and motivated around this new goal. So the other really essential piece of this puzzle to help you really stick, not just get motivated that one day, and then you know how New Year's resolutions, they just kind of, you know, they go away. We like get motivated and then it's like April and you're like, what was that? So I want to share with you 3 emotional health skills to help you not just get motivated, but stay motivated. And when you put the puzzle together at the end, I'm going to give you the steps to actually putting this into a practice. So the first skill that is absolutely essential to help you use this practice effectively is acceptance. And particularly, it's accepting that where you are without judgment and recognizing that just because you accept where you are does not mean you cannot improve. It's the opposite. I've talked about this quite a bit, but it's always such an important reminder. You know, I used to really fear that if I accept that something is not working, or if I accept a flaw that I have, that I'm going to be stuck with it forever. But actually, it's the opposite. Acceptance doesn't mean you're like, okay, that's it, not going to do anything about it. It's the opposite. Acceptance means clearly seeing in a full way. So once you accept something as it is, you're not saying this is how it is forever. You're saying right now, this is my starting point. So it is really essential that you practice acceptance when you're thinking about this new goal that you want to get motivated around, or a project or an area of your life or a habit, that you practice acceptance. And part of that is self-acceptance. So instead of saying to myself, oh my God, I am such a pathetic loser. I cannot believe I did not do yoga in August. Oh my God, I'm a horrible, horrible yogi. That is not acceptance. That is self-flagellation and self-criticism. The only thing that does is reduces motivation. So acceptance would be to say, okay, in August, I did not do a lot of yoga. Acceptance is about the facts. It's not about judging. It's just about being clear about how things are. So it's really important when you think about using this fresh start, that first and foremost, you practice acceptance around where things are right now. And again, that means not self-critical, not self-judgy, not judgy of others, but here is how things are. I have not been practicing yoga in August. Okay, and recognize that that is the beginning, not the end. Acceptance is the beginning, not the end. Just like self-acceptance is the beginning, it's not the end. The second skill that is really important to practice if you want to actually stick to your motivation is the skill of the bigger why. It's the skill of connecting to your sense of purpose. Why is achieving this goal or being motivated as a team? Why is that important? And remember, we derive our sense of purpose, sense of meaning as people when we connect what we are doing to how does it positively impact others? How does it contribute to someone other than us? That's the intersection of where most of us find meaning, connecting what we do to how does it positively impact someone other than ourselves. And so research shows that when you have a sense of purpose in whatever you're doing, you're more motivated to stick with it. I talk about the bigger why as being your bridge of resilience, because when things are challenging, it can feel like, you know, I can't do it or our team can't do it. But when you reconnect to why is this important to us, that becomes your source of motivation. So when you're thinking about this, whatever it is, goal, project, team dynamic that you want to have a fresh start around, really important to articulate to yourself, and if you're doing this with your team, to others, why is this important? So when you achieve this goal, when you get motivated around it, how is it going to help someone other than you? So let's take my example, right? Yoga. How is my sticking to yoga help anyone other than me? Really easy answer. When I do yoga, I'm a much nicer, awesomer human being to my family, to my colleagues, to everyone I interact with. When I do yoga, I fuel myself. And when I have more emotional energy, I have more to give to all the awesome humans like you. So articulate, just like saying this to myself, actually, like with all of you right now, I feel fueled. I'm like, yeah, like I want to do yoga because it's not just for me. It's not just so I can like stick to it. Like when I do yoga, I have more to give to the awesome humans like you. Like you can hear it in my voice. Like I love that. So again, when you're thinking about this goal that you want to get remotivated around, or when you're doing this with your team, get really clear about your bigger why. How is you being motivated to do whatever this thing is? How is it going to positively impact someone other than you? And I guarantee you that is a huge source of motivation. And finally, the third skill, the third essential emotional health skill to practice if you want to actually get and stay motivated is self-compassion. I cannot talk about it enough. What is self-compassion? Self-compassion is a skill of treating yourself as you would a friend, right? And think about like what I just said, right? Like when I was talking about acceptance. So I can either say, oh my God, I'm a pathetic human being who hasn't practiced yoga in a month. Or you can be like, wow, I'm a horrible boss. I've not been communicating with my team so well. Or you can be like, wow, I'm a really terrible, I'm a terrible leader. And I am not really investing in the well-being of my team. You can either be self-judging that way, and you can reduce your motivation that way, or you can practice self-compassion. And again, self-compassion simply means that you approach yourself in a way that you would a friend, in a supportive way, in an accepting way, and in a way that reduces your struggle. And so when you're thinking about this goal that you want to get motivated around, or doing this with your team, think about being self-compassionate about it. So it includes things like not endlessly self-criticizing yourself for not having done it yet. It includes things like not setting up expectations of perfection for yourself or your team, right? So from this day on, we're going to do this perfectly. That is not self-compassion. You won't expect perfection of people you love, right? We do not expect perfection from our friends or from others. So let's not expect it of ourselves. And so when you're talking about when you're thinking about how to get motivated around this goal on your own or as a team, remember to be self-compassionate in that process, both in how you're talking about yourself and in how you're thinking about the future. Do not set yourself up for failing by creating unrealistic, perfect expectation for how now you're going to be motivated always 100% and be perfect. We know that's not realistic. We wouldn't expect that of a friend. So again, the 3 essential skills to practice, and I'm going to put it all together into steps for you next, but once you identify this goal, this area of your life or with your team that you want to get motivated around, pick a fresh start date. Use the temporal landmark of a Monday, make it up, make next Thursday a really special, this is our team fresh start around X date. Like, have fun with it, by the way, like make it really fun, but pick your fresh start date, which again, the only thing that's important is that you decide that it's a fresh start. You make a landmark around it. That's what temporal landmarks are. You just create in time a landmark, and then articulate the contrast between how things have been. I have not been going to yoga. My team has not been communicating really well. I have not been communicating well to my team, just some examples. That's how things have been, and how you want them to be. What will be the positive effects, the contrast? So I'm gonna go to yoga and I'm gonna fuel myself. We're gonna be better as a team communicating with each other, and it's gonna help us be at our best during this challenging time. Create the contrast, articulate it to yourself and to others if you're doing it as a team. That helps your brain let go of the old self and then focus on the new self. And then practice these 3 essential skills that I've just talked about. The first is acceptance. So see clearly and articulate clearly where you are right now. Recognize that it's your starting point, and be really open and honest about it, not judging, not beating yourself up, but just acknowledging this is where we are. So practice acceptance about the facts. Second, connect to your bigger why for this goal. So why will achieving this goal or creating this habit or being motivated in this area, how is it going to be meaningful? Why is it meaningful to you and your team? And remember, we derive a sense of meaning when we connect what we are doing, any task, anything you're doing, to how does it positively impact someone else. And if you're doing this with a team, I really encourage you to have a discussion about this. So do a little session around this and talk about like, okay, like this is going to be our fresh start date. Let's make it a special occasion. This is what we want to get motivated around. Talk about how is it going to help us? How is it going to help others? Really articulate this, do this together. So the bigger why is your second skill. And third is be self-compassionate in both how you look at your old self who wasn't motivated around this area and in the expectations that you set for the future. I cannot articulate this enough. And this is, I'm raising both hands. Hi, I am Natalie, and I am a recovering freaking perfectionist, okay? Like I tell you guys, so I write, I don't have it near me because I was filming in this area, so I cleaned it up, but I have this yellow, obviously. I know you're shocked that my journal is yellow. I know, it's a big surprise, but I write my thoughts, my goals, all that stuff. And I keep all these journals, and I have a big drawer of them. And from time to time, I'll reread one from the past. And actually, last year around my birthday is December 29th. Yes, we will have a virtual party. I'm making that promise, Debbie, right now. I've just decided we're gonna make a virtual party, because why not? But I'll reread one of my past journals. And so last year on my birthday, I was reading one from maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And one of the things that struck me, yay, another December birthday, woohoo, another Capricorn. Any other Capricorns? What struck me reading one of my older journals was like I would write down things I wanted to do, achieve the next year. It was like I was assuming I was some kind of like Hercules or something. First of all, the list was like this long, and they were all like insane, like huge like goals. And I would write like exercise 6 times a week, or drink this much water every day, or launch a new this, or write a new book, or don't look at my phone for more than half an hour a day. Like they were all these highly even the language that I used. And so that is not self-compassion, because when you expect perfection of yourself, we all know there's no such thing. Dali, one of my favorite artists, Salvador Dali, has this quote that I love. He said, he's not alive anymore, don't worry about reaching perfection. You can never do it. It's not there, okay? And so we all know that we cannot achieve perfection. So it's not self-compassionate to set us up for failure by making our goals around motivation perfection goals. So be self-compassionate, allow room for error, allow room for humanity, recognize you're a human being. Your team is made up not of machines, but of human beings. So when you're getting motivated around this new goal, be careful about your expectations. Make sure they're self-compassionate in nature. So I've not been to the Museum of Dali in Florida. I'm reading some of your comments. Someone just said, have you been to his museum in Florida? No, but that goes on the list. I've been to his museum in Spain. It's surreal, like actually surreal to be there. So those are the 3 skills. So I wanna, as always, because I wanna make this super concrete for you all, I put all of what I just said into a 4-step practice that I just realized I'll never have time to write notes that we can actually share, because I do this the time before, but this is a good article. So definitely I will publish this out, because it's a really good article for these steps. So here are your 4 steps of how to use a fresh start and emotional health skills to get motivated around a new goal. Oh, Debbie just wrote them down, because brilliant. Debbie copied them out of my document. Brilliant. But I will put these on Instagram. I'll do a video about this on YouTube as well. So here are the steps. Step 1. And again, if you're in Zoom, Debbie just copied them for you in chat. Step 1, you want to identify a goal, a realistic self-compassionate goal that you want to be motivated around. Remotivated or motivated. And again, individually, do this with your team. If you're doing this with your team, I cannot encourage you more to actually like make this interactive. So instead of you saying the goal, maybe your team can create like a couple ideas. Like, here's what we want to get remotivated around as a team. Identify this goal, and it can be anything. It can be a new habit. It can be a habit that you've kind of slacked on, like yoga. It could be communication. It can be a project. It can be anything. So step 1 is identify this goal that you want to be motivated to work towards. And if you're doing this with a team, have a dialogue around it. Step 2, pick your fresh start date. So pick this date and make it, either it should be special in some way, or make it special in some way. So maybe it's next Monday and you call it my Fresh Start Monday. Maybe you like it being random. I kind of like random. Like next Thursday is my Fresh Start Thursday. If you're doing this with a team, you can give it a name. You can pick a theme for this Fresh Start, but pick a day that is special in your mind and in the minds of your team that is going to be your fresh start. You want to pick it a little bit in advance just so everyone has time to kind of get motivated and excited and plan for it. So like not tomorrow, but next week. Again, if you're doing this with a team, take suggestions, have fun with this, have people name this fresh start day. By the way, I'm dying to hear, if you put this into practice, please send an email to team@happier. I want to know when your fresh starts are. I want to know if you've given them a name. I want to know what your team is doing around it. I want the fuel. I want to see how you're making this come to life. And mark this day on your calendar. So, you know, I don't know about you, if it's not on my calendar, it's not real. So put it on your calendar, actually name the day. So be it like next Monday or October 1st, whatever it is, put it on your calendar. If you're doing this with a team, put it on your team calendar, give it a name. I think it really helps. Step 3, as you think about this goal, this habit, this area, practice the 3 emotional health skills when you think about it. Acceptance, which is acknowledging how things are without judgment, just focusing on the facts and recognizing it's the beginning and drawing contrast for how things will be. The second is the bigger why. So connecting for yourself and for your team, why is working on this project or working on this new habit or working towards this goal? How is it meaningful? How is it going to positively impact other people? And self-compassion, be self-compassionate towards both looking back of you or you as a team having not done this and setting compassionate future expectations that are not perfect, that do not expect you and your team to be machines. And actually practice. Again, I encourage you to write these out: acceptance, bigger why, self-compassion. So as you focus on your goal, I encourage you to write your reflections on these and again, do it together as a team. And then the final step 4 is create a check-in date for yourself. I suggest maybe 2 weeks or a month after your fresh start. Put it on your calendar so it reminds you, just as a moment to check in and see how you've been doing. Like, how have you been doing with your motivation around this particular goal or habit or a team practice? Like, check in. And again, with acceptance, with self-compassion, without judgment, just setting yourself a reminder to check in the future. So again, the 4 steps are: identify the goal around which you want to get motivated or get remotivated. This is actually an important reminder. It doesn't have to be anything new. Maybe it's already something that is in your life or in a project that you have as a team or a habit you have that you just want to remotivate around. So it doesn't have, you don't have to add anything. It could be something you already have that you just want to be more motivated and focused on. So pick that goal. If you're doing it with a team, have a conversation about it. Pick your fresh start date. Make it special in some way. Give it a name. Do something fun around it. Like, make it something that's a temporal landmark that is unique in your brain. Practice acceptance, the bigger why, and self-compassion when you're talking about this goal to yourself or with your team. Set realistic expectations. Acknowledge where you are and where you want to go with acceptance, not with judgment. And connect to how is your motivation around this goal, around this habit, how is it going to positively impact someone else? Connect to your sense of purpose. And finally, step 4, pick a date in the future. So maybe 2 weeks after your fresh start, maybe a month after your fresh start, and put it on your calendar and use it as a way to check in with yourself. How am I doing? How's my motivation around this doing? How are we doing it as a team? And again, do that with self-compassion. So on your check-in date, this is not a time to be self-judgy or self-critical or, oh my God, I am pathetic. It's a time to reset, right? It's a time to check in and reset. So those are your 4 steps. And again, thank you, Debbie, for copying them for my notes and putting them in chat. Smart. I will post about this on social media. So if we're not connected, the best way to stay in touch is through the Happier email. I send it weekly. I write it myself. There's never spam. There's just stuff like this. And you always get to know about other free events I'm doing, programs we're doing. So Debbie will post links to get in touch. And then Instagram and YouTube are 2 channels I spend most of my energy on. So I post on Instagram almost daily, and YouTube Debbie will post links, but if you're not subscribed to my channel, please go and subscribe. I'm sharing weekly videos around practices like this to help you struggle less and stay energized during this tough time. And so I will do a video around this, and I'll definitely share this on Instagram. So with that, would love to take some questions. I have a couple other things that I want to mention around this, but I actually love to take some questions before I mention those things. Just have an opportunity. Someone emailed me last week to say, I wish we had more time for questions, because I don't think of a question until like someone has already asked a question. So trying to be more disciplined, you all, with questions. And Debbie, as always, going to help moderate. So if you have a question, please put it in chat or put it in Q&A. And Debbie will ask me some questions. And then if we have time, there's a couple other things I want to mention around this fresh starts idea. So over to you, Debbie.
Thanks, Natalie. Okay, so I want to give a mention of, Natalie talked about a lot of ways that you can use the skills to support you with your fresh start. And so I posted, along with the steps, a link to our resource page. And on the resource page, there's lots of great information about the skills. So if you're wanting to, as you're doing these steps, if you're wanting to reference some ways to practice acceptance, the bigger why, and self-compassion, that is your spot to do it. And I'm going to actually paste it again right now.
Awesome. Debbie.
So Natalie, I want to start with I want to move on to a shout out and a question from Sonia Gray, who is.
Hey, Sonia. Sonia is an old friend of Happier. Hi, Sonia.
Yes. She actually put in the chat that she's a Happier Teen BFF, and that is true. We're so glad you're here.
Mutual.
Yes. And she asked this question before you talked about teams. But she's got a particular situation that I think you could speak to. She's hired new staff and would like to use this science and approach with the new team, which includes 2 existing people and 3 new people. And I think that you gave some great ways that you could use this, but maybe you could use this example to talk about how she could introduce this idea to the team.
Yeah, it's a great question. And hi, Sonia. I love seeing Happier Team BFFs. You're all by being on this webinar, you're part of our Happier community. And some of you have been with us and with me for a long haul. So I love knowing you're on the other side of the screen. So it's a great question. I actually think this, using this fresh start to get motivated around a goal as a team is a really awesome practice to do right now, whether you have a new team, like Sonia has some new people, or you have an existing team and you just want to infuse some energy around goals. Given that it's time of transition, somewhere into September, for those of us who are working parents or who are parents, our kids are going back to school in all kinds of weird ways. It's like a really difficult time. So I think it's a really wonderful way to kind of re-energize as a team, whether you have new people or you've had people on your team for a while. And my really tangible suggestion, I would do a session around this with your team. I think this is an awesome this is a really awesome topic for a meeting. You know how we all hate meetings? If there's someone on here who doesn't like who loves meetings, okay, I don't know you, because none of us love meetings, okay? Other than this one, but this is not a meeting. This is an art-infused, joyful break in the day. Don't ever dare call our webinar a meeting, Debbie. So I think this is actually a great session to put on the calendar as a team and to go through these steps together. I think it's a really great activity. And again, with the 4 steps, that each one, what I think is really important is to ask your team for input. So instead of telling your team, like, here's the goal, here's the fresh start date, here's how I want us to think about it, make it a collaborative exercise, right? To say, here's the concept I want us to use. I heard this Happier Yellow Natalie lady talk about it. Here's the research. Our brain really responds to fresh starts. So let's mark a day and use that as our fresh start. Talk about, get input on what are the important goals or habits for your team that people want to be motivated around. Pick one together and then go through the 4 steps together. So identify the goal, pick the date together, give it a name, give it a theme, decide how you're going to kick it off. I highly encourage really cheap Amazon facial costumes, like crazy glasses or sparkly things. Like, I highly encourage getting those and bringing them to this fresh start date, and frankly to any meeting. That second step, so do it together, pick the fresh start date, decide how you're going to make it special. The third step, talk about how you can be accepting and self-compassionate about this goal, and talk about, as a team, how is working towards this goal, how is it going to positively impact someone other than you and the team? And then pick together your check-in date. Again, put it on the team calendar, decide how you're all going to check in with each other. Is it going to be another virtual meeting? Are you going to do it in writing? So take these 4 steps and invite your team to collaborate with you on it. I'm actually like getting super jazzed and excited about thinking of you all doing this with your team. But I also want to say, so Sonia, that's my answer for you. As I'm talking about it, I'm also realizing this is a really great thing to do with a family or with your loved one or to do with friends. Again, I started by talking about how in this pandemic, it's like everything is kind of same and we're all in this drudge and it's really hard. So I think this is a really great thing to do with your family. I'm going to make my family do this. Poor Avi and Mia, you've met them here. They become guinea pigs for all of these things I come up with. They don't really have a choice. I think they enjoy roughly 80% of them. I may be high, but I'm sticking with it. But I think this is a great thing to do as a family, right? Pick a fresh start date in September. Talk about something you want to get motivated around as a family. Talk about how it's going to positively impact someone else. Pick your check-in date. I think it's a really great practice to do with a family, especially if you have kids, with a loved one. So I'm extending, remember, a family is a team. You and your partner is a team. You and your group of friends, you are a team. So do this practice of fresh starts. Do it not just for yourself, but do it with a team.
So, something that occurs to me, Natalie, is if I was one of the existing team members in the scenario, I think I would really enjoy this idea of things that I've been wanting to do or ways I've been wanting to work, that this fresh start would kind of let me off the hook mentally of like kind of putting aside like habits or ways of working or communicating or whatever that maybe aren't working or don't feel right, and just putting those down and starting fresh. And I love the idea of using a new team member or new team members, or maybe even a new work dynamic, like part work from home, part work in the office, to use that as a way to do some things that are fresh.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. Someone said in chat while you were talking about perfection that a light went off for them, and that they wouldn't expect perfection from a friend. And they were asking this question, I think rhetorically, but I think it'd be something great to speak to, is why do they expect perfection from themselves? And I think that it's so great to be able to not only look at it from the lens of a friend, but also from this fresh start perspective of whatever tape you've had in your head about being perfect. Now you have a fresh start.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, it's a this topic of perfection. I feel like we could do a webinar about it every week, and it won't be too much. I really do. So, to the first part of the question, I don't know if I have a brilliant answer. I don't. I'm not a social anthropologist or a psychologist of why do we expect perfection of ourselves when we never expected from others. But actually, there's an insight that I do want to share just from my own experience. So, the title of my book, Happier Now, which I know many of you have read, but the subtitle is how to stop chasing perfection and embrace everyday moments, including the difficult ones. And, It's been a huge learning for me. It's been a huge part of my journey, which I share in the book and I've shared with all of you. And one of the insights that I want to share from that is when I used to expect perfection for myself, I had pretty unrealistic expectations of people in my life too. And I was a lot less patient with people. I was less empathetic. The more that I've been practicing letting go of my inner perfectionist, the more empathetic and patient I've been with others. So I do think it's related. Kind of when we expect perfection from ourselves, we do sometimes set unrealistic standards for others as well, but we never expect perfection from others. And, you know, I think that we develop, you know, one of my favorite psychologists and philosophers probably who's had the greatest influence on me and everything I teach is Alfred Adler. He actually was a contemporary of Freud and Carl Jung. We don't hear about him very much, which is, I think, a bummer. So I'm doing everything I can to bring him out. But he's had a huge influence on me. And he actually, he created something that's called the individual psychology. But he really talks about that so much of how we live our lives and things we do, it's because we're trying to make up for perceived inadequacy. So we somehow create the sense of unworthiness in ourselves. And we spend so much of our lives trying to make up for it. And perfection comes from that. Our expectations of perfection for ourselves come from a place of we don't think we're worthy of love or acceptance unless we are perfect. And so we're spending energy on that and time on that. It is, yes, Angela, it's a really powerful concept. And I'm writing a lot about Alfred Adler in my new book that I'm working on. He's definitely going to make a lot of appearances there. He's a huge influence on my life. And I have to say, this is like completely off topic, but having read so much of his work, it's like we knew each other. I don't know, so many of the principles that I've learned for myself that I share with all of you, he taught just in different ways. So I feel like I have him here with me. So that's kind of where perfection, this drive comes from. Now, here's the thing about perfection. I think for me, one of really important lessons that I've learned is that expecting perfection from myself does not actually help me improve. And that's when I talk to you about self-compassion. So what I find is, and this is, by the way, there's a lot of research on this. For example, people who go on a diet, when they don't treat themselves with self-compassion, when they expect perfection. So I'm going to stick to this, I'm going to stick to it perfectly. When they don't, they fall off the wagon. They punish themselves by being really self-critical. They don't get back on, right? But people who don't expect perfection, so when they stumble, when they have a rough day, they say, okay, I had a rough day. I'm a human being. I screwed that up. I'm going to start again tomorrow. So they treat themselves with self-compassion without expectation of perfection. They're actually more motivated. They stick with their goals longer. And so that is a really powerful insight that I have learned that I want to share with you is to question yourself. How does expecting perfection of yourself, how does that actually help you improve? Because the honest answer is that it doesn't. And again, this is why, you know, I've talked to you about, I share this practice of self-compassion. One of my favorite practices that I'll share now to really help me learn how to treat myself as a friend is I call it 3 steps to kinder self-talk. And it's these 3 simple steps. The first step is to become aware of when you're being unkind to yourself, when you're treating yourself harshly, when you're not talking to yourself as a friend. And we all know that voice. We all know that nasty, like it all sounds kind of the same for all of us. For me, it sounds like nah, 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 nah. You know, that sound like, you didn't do this right. You didn't do this right. It's great. Like, oh. So first step is to become aware of that self-critic, to become aware when you're talking to yourself in an unkind way. The second step is to pause and be grateful that you noticed and to connect to that deeper part of you, that witness that is able to notice that voice in your head. And the third step, I want you to imagine you are talking to someone you love. So imagine you're talking to a friend and rephrase what you just said to yourself in that nah, self-critical voice as if you're talking to that friend. I always share this. I use my daughter for this practice, Mia. She knows this. And it's amazing. The minute I think of her, like my body language softens. I smile. And what I say to her sounds completely different. And so these are your 3 steps to kinder self-talk that I encourage you to use when you're setting new goals, when you're looking at a fresh start, when you're looking at how to get remotivated. Be kind to yourself. Actually use those steps of self-talk so that you don't expect perfection of yourself, because when you do, that is a sure way to set yourself up for failure. That is actually not motivating. And thank you, Debbie, for Debbie just posted a link to the article where I write about the science of self-compassion and these 3 steps. So that's your Natalie pep talk on why self-compassion is so essential to counter the tendency of perfection. And it'll actually help you be motivated more. It'll actually help you reach your goal more. So let's take one more question. We have time for one more question.
Okay, so Natalie, this is 2-part. The first is some context. Someone wrote in and talked about how after having a week off, they were really having a hard time and feeling very stuck emotionally and mentally. And the week off was even a gift to everybody in their company. Yep. And I'm so glad that this person is here today, because they said that being here and listening to you has helped them shift internally. And she said how to restart mentally during the pandemic: gratitude, which leads to Andrew, a friend of Happier, wrote in and said that he has a nagging question about gratitude, and that he's been thinking about since this morning when he was practicing gratitude. And sometimes when he practices, he finds that, he can note the small things that he's grateful for, but he doesn't always feel it. He knows, so he intellectually knows he's grateful for these things, and he makes them small and specific, but he knows that not feeling it is not right. Yeah.
So Andrew, it's a great question. Andrew is an advanced gratitude practitioner. I know this because Andrew has been an active part of the Happier community in every way. So I know Andrew, this is an advanced question, but it's a really great one. When I talk about making your gratitude effective, the most important first thing is that you actually feel genuine gratitude for whatever this thing is. The next is to be specific, but if you don't feel it, if it's just here, then like Andrew said, it's checking off a list. So I want to offer you a gratitude practice. This actually in my book, if you want to refer to it, but it's really, really helpful and powerful if you find yourself in a gratitude rut. And I call it Imagine Life Without This. So here's how it goes. I want you to pick something that you use that is part of your life all the time, that maybe you don't even think about it. Running water, refrigerator. You can also apply this to a person. And it works really well if you're annoyed with someone, like if you're annoyed with your friend, your partner, your child, your boss, or if you're annoyed with that thing, like your refrigerator is making too much noise, or you're not happy with your car, whatever. So if that thing is annoying, it works even better. But pick something that is really a core part of your life that you take for granted. It's there all the time. And imagine your life without it. And I want you to get really concrete about it. So like, I've done this practice with my family. Like I would say to my daughter, imagine there is no running water. Like when we turn the faucet on, there is no water. And talk to yourself about it. Like actually get really concrete about what your life is like when you don't have that thing, when you don't have a refrigerator, when you don't have water, when you don't have this person in your life, when you don't have the art supplies in your life to make art, when you don't have music in your life that you love to listen to. And really think about that. Is one of the most effective gratitude practices for me when I find myself like complaining about life a lot, is imagine life without this. And again, Andrew, I hope you give this a shot, and everybody else. It's a really powerful way to practice gratitude. Imagine your life without this. Pick something that you take for granted and get really concrete with yourself. What is your life like without it? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What is your life like without it? And I guarantee you, if you are a human being, you will experience gratitude for that thing, however imperfect it is, however much it might be annoying you, you will experience gratitude for it. And it can be the simplest thing, like drinking water. So imagine life without this as a gratitude practice. I encourage you to try. With that, we're at time. I say this every week. I don't know where this hour goes, but it goes. Thank you all for taking this time for you. Thank you all for joining us, for giving me and Debbie the privilege and the honor of being able to offer you some skills and practices and motivation and activation and inspiration for your week. Please tell us about your fresh starts. You can tag me on Instagram. You can send us an email to team@happier.com. We would love to know how you're practicing your fresh starts, how you're doing it on your own or with a team. And a little teaser, I think it's going to be next week, maybe 2 weeks, but I'm really, really excited. We're going to talk about foods that help your brain be happier with an incredible author and Harvard professor who just released a book about it. So I'm setting up a time, so it's either going to be next week or a week after. I'm lining up some really great guests coming up. So thank you all for being here. So grateful, so excited to see you next week. And I cannot wait to hear about your fresh starts. Have an awesome, awesome rest of your week. Take good care. Debbie, as always, virtual hug. Virtual hug all the way from Boston into New York. And to all of you, take good care, everyone.